All right. It is Tuesday, Veterans Day, November 11th, and I'm here with Alyssa Farah Griffin. Hello.
Hello, Brian.
How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah?
I would like to share the compliment you gave me, which is this was maternity chic, and I would agree.
I think so. No, you look great. You
You're
look great.
nailing it. Good show today.
I thought so too. Let's start with our guest. Let's talk our first guest, Senator Fetterman. Senator Fetterman, he's kind of interesting. It's funny. I've been watching memes online about how he's done a Freaky Friday with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and he's gone as right as she's gone as left. He was one of the 8 senators that broke with the Democratic caucus. He was there the whole time. He was never going anywhere else. But he's been a big part of why they were able to push through a vote that seems to be ending the government shutdown, something that you're happy about.
Yeah.
Yesterday we had Sunny on the podcast. She's less happy about it. What did you make of what he had to say today?
So I strongly agreed with him, but I want to acknowledge I do see both sides of this. I see when I talk to my Democratic friends, they're very much where Sunny is. They want a fight. They're extremely frustrated because I think there's this feeling of like there's a lack of power that they have right now. It feels like Donald Trump is dominating everything. He's getting everything that he wants, and they want to see their leaders fight. So I get that. But what I think he's right about is you don't counter chaos with chaos. Right now, Trump is being chaos. A shutdown of the government, the FAA, people feeling unsafe in the skies, travel plans falling apart, 40 million people losing their SNAP benefits, millions of federal workers not getting paid, our troops not getting paid ahead of the holidays. Like, it's not right. And I think the way that Senator Fetterman described it, where it's let us be the adults in the room who say, we don't agree that you're not extending Obamacare subsidies, but we agree that keeping the functions of the government moving forward and serving the American people is more important. And you've got to consider, it was an answer to someone else's question, this is a guy from a purple state, a state that was must win last election, and Donald Trump won. Pennsylvania is millions of voters who can basically decide every election. It's not New York. It's not California. And I would say that there's a lot of voters there. There's an interesting poll in Quinnipiac that basically says 45% of Americans blame Republicans for the shutdown, 39% blame Democrats, and the rest just think the whole thing's a mess. So I think that if you get out of kind of the political mindset of who's up, who's down, who's taking the blame, and just look at how the general public perceives it, they see it as no one is meeting my needs in a moment where it feels more expensive than ever. I'm working harder than ever, and my dollar's not going further. So in that regard, I think he's right. It's not a popular place to be, but a lot of times leadership is taking unpopular steps, taking unpopular votes. It's a lot easier to do like direct to videos, love Bernie Sanders, but be the opposition. It's a lot harder to govern, especially when you have a White House that doesn't feel like it wants to govern a lot of the time.
It's interesting, and nothing you say there can be dismissed. You're right. People are going hungry. I mean, people are not getting paid for their jobs. These are important things. I think some of the frustration seems to be that it was all for nothing. Is the perception that it was all for nothing, whether that's true or not.
Yes, but I guess that's more of the strategy question in the first place, because I don't know that John Fetterman or I could have conveyed to you what Democrats thought they'd get out of it in the end. I do think as an energizing force, especially ahead of last Tuesday's election, I think it was smart of them to show they're willing to dig in their heels and say stop when they don't like what the administration's doing. But there isn't a path just based on the numbers and how our Congress works where I think they were going to get a major concession on these Obamacare subsidies, which takes me to my next point. Republicans will be in a very bad place going into the 2026 midterms if they let these Obamacare subsidies expire, they don't vote to extend them. People are going to see their healthcare costs double. People cannot afford that, and they will own it. And Democrats will be on the airwaves saying we were fighting to try to stop this. We had legislation we wanted to put forward. We wanted a vote. I think they'll get a vote in the Senate. I don't know. It doesn't sound like Mike Johnson's going to give them one in the House. And I think that if they're able to message it, Republicans are going to own that. I get that that feels like a Pyrrhic victory because it's like, yes, we made our point, but people suffer in the meantime. But that is what being in the minority is. Like, you have to win elections to be able to stop things or to be able to proactively vote in legislation. To me, it's so frustrating because I don't see it as right or left. I don't love everything about Obamacare. I don't think it was this life-saving approach to healthcare. What I think is noble about it is it gave more people insurance. More people have coverage because of Obamacare. That is a very good thing. I think it boosted monopolies. I think it took out a lot of private insurance and a lot of choices that were more affordable for Americans. And I think our quality of insurance has gone down and our premiums have gone up. I don't blame Obama for that. I blame the 15 years in between that Congress hasn't intervened and tried to do fixes on it. So I feel very strongly that this is, a lot of people own this who haven't tried to fix the system. But what you can't do is pull the rug out from under people and let their health care go through the roof so no one can afford it.
All right. Well, I want to talk about something else you asked Fetterman about. Also, by the way, I don't want to overlook your excellent use of Pyrrhic victory. By the way, that was impressive. Just to slip that in there. You pushed Fetterman about whether he thinks Chuck Schumer is the person for the moment in Democratic leadership. He responded it wasn't his focus at the moment. He definitely sidestepped it. What do you make of some saying that he should step down? It really caught on yesterday that, and of course, he wasn't one of those who voted for this, the end of the shutdown. But I guess it's the idea that he can't hold his caucus together.
Yeah. I think that Schumer's days as leader are numbered. I think that he was right the first time to avoid a government shutdown. But I think that this is bigger than this fight alone. I think that there needs to be a generational and a stylistic shift in the Democratic Party. So I use this example with my producer, who's exactly my age, and we immediately both were like, yes. So Bernie Sanders' response to the shutdown has gone viral. It's him walking through the Senate hallways. It's a vertical video that is perfect for TikTok, for Reels, for Twitter, for X. The Democrats who voted for this deal, they're at a press podium. They're lecturing. They're doing their whole thing. They don't even know how we communicate anymore. It feels like it's a generational difference. And that's not an age thing. Bernie Sanders is as old as Chuck Schumer is. But it's like they don't get the new world we live in and how you reach voters, how you communicate to them in sound bites, and how you deliver your message. And Chuck Schumer's had a career that he deserves a lot of credit for. But I would say it's time for him to go pass the torch to someone else, someone who can message, someone who's a fighter. And it's less really to me about the mechanics of do we shut down the government and how do we fight, but just who can literally be a messenger for Democrats.
It's about the communication at this point.
I think especially with Donald Trump, where everything's kind of about messaging and winning the airwaves war.
Well, speaking about that, because affordability was a major message among many of the candidates that won last Tuesday. Last night, it was posed to Donald Trump by Laura Ingraham, of all people, and they talked about he basically dismissed the idea that people were feeling the effects of a bad economy, which you were vocal about during the election, the 2024 election, saying this is what the Biden people were missing and the Kamala Harris people were missing, that being told an economy is good when you don't feel it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
How do you think this is affecting Trump and his MAGA messaging? You know Donald Trump. You were in the room with him. Do you think this is the kind of thing that people can break through to him on, or do you think he just refuses to believe it?
I think he has a massive blind spot that is probably insurmountable on the economy. I think I misstated the stat, by the way. So it's about 62% of Americans are invested in the stock market. But keep in mind,
and most of those people are 401ks.
That's their 401ks.
Right.
That's their retirement accounts. It's not money that they can actively pull from and use to pay their day-to-day expenses. But Donald Trump's almost always kind of looked at the economy from the perspective of, is the market up? That only speaks to one aspect of the economy. Like if consumer confidence is down, if basic goods and services cost more, if manufacturing is not coming on shores to the U.S. but going abroad, if there's more people unemployed than there are jobs available, those are huge, glaring red flags about the economy that, frankly, how the market's performing is sort of irrelevant to. And he doesn't get that. And it's why I feel very strongly you need people of all socioeconomic backgrounds and leadership, because Donald Trump is somebody who's been wealthy basically his whole life. He is surrounded by the wealthiest, most powerful people on the planet. This is where I would have loved to hear, I don't know what the private conversations are, but like JD Vance weigh in on what his experience is.
Hillbilly elegy.
Because he grew up very differently than Donald Trump did. And I know Mike Pence grew up not nearly the same level as JD Vance, but he was somebody who could say, hey, I was just home in Indiana and this is what I'm hearing from farmers. This is what I'm hearing from auto manufacturers. I don't think that's breaking through. And I think Trump is in flood the zone mode of just say it's good and hope that catches on. But the same voters who propelled him to victory, which are working class voters and especially young male voters, they will leave him as quickly if he can't hold that working class coalition together. If they're feeling like their lives are not getting better and he's not meeting their needs, will they see him living his best life? That's just not going to work.
It does seem like, because a lot of the MAGA base seems to enjoy all the gold and enjoy the parties at Mar-a-Lago and the ballroom. But it definitely is starting to feel French Revolution.
It really does.
It's giving French Revolution.
And you don't want to give French Revolution.
No.
I think it's what I hate that how much I'm invoking Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
I've got to find another person.
The whole show has been this.
It's remarkable. But I think it's what she's speaking to. Like, if you, even his most diehard voters, if you're in real America and you're not a multimillionaire or billionaire with like gold-plated things, your life looks very different than his, and he seems very detached from it. But this is where I think Democrats need to respectfully put a pin in the infighting over should we have voted to reopen the government or not, and focus on affordability. It's what helped them in these elections last week. Is they should be playing that clip on loop of him saying things are good and then just rattling off the stats of how bad they are. Dems have to win back that working class coalition, which was theirs for 30 years. And I think they're capable of doing it. But like, speaking to people's needs and anxieties and fears is the way that they're going to resonate.
You invoked Marjorie Taylor Greene again. One person who does not like it being invoked is John Fetterman. My gosh, he got fired up in that moment. But what do you make of, like, for instance, what do you make of the fact that John Fetterman is somewhat more center-right than people thought, that Marjorie's making this change to, that people are kind of changing sides almost? Is that overstating it? What do you think's happening?
I see them very differently, personally.
Yeah.
I really appreciated having Marjorie Taylor Greene here. I found her to be incredibly kind and thoughtful off air and at commercial breaks, curious, polite. I found her to be more thoughtful on policy than I expected her to. When she talked about healthcare, I felt like she had a better knowledge of the system and what's wrong about it than I think, based on sound bites, I would have expected she did. And I own that I made my own assumptions about her. But I don't buy that this is a person who believed a lot of things and is completely on the other side of it. I think that you have to look at, are there bigger ambitions? Why would she? I think her concerns about her constituents are real. I fully acknowledge that. I think this is probably teeing up for some bigger political run down the road. John Fetterman, I watched that Pennsylvania race against Dr. Oz very closely. I actually had friends advising on both sides of that race. I don't actually think there's as big of a departure as people think. He, in a Democratic primary, you're going to run a little more to the left, but he's always been this sort of centrist, speaking to the working class voter.
Which he does effectively.
Yeah, and he's very rural Pennsylvania. Like, we talk about Pennsylvania, we used to call it Pennsyltucky. Like, there's a part of that state that's not Pittsburgh, it's not Philly. It's much more like a red state. And I think he's acknowledging that his voters, his constituents are all of those people. Right. I also think how pro-Israel he is, people link that to being right wing, and I don't think he's out of step where the Democratic Party was for the last 20 years on it. I think that's been more of a change in recent years.
One more thing on Marjorie Taylor Greene. I will say this. One thing I really appreciate is she came to the show in good faith,
100%.
legitimately, and that's evident more than anything else in the fact that she's consistently being baited by people after visiting The View, which is what always happens. Yeah. And she's not taking anybody up on it. She's not,
isn't.
There are people that come here, have a nice conversation, and then do a press tour about the women of The View and how they're horrible and yada, yada, yada.
That's what's always surprising to me, is that, because what the audience doesn't see is you get about 3 minutes at commercial breaks off air with the guests. And we almost always talk to them and have warm conversations. And there have been guests we've had on, some very recently, who I felt like we had a really nice, warm exchange at the table. I saw with multiple hosts, them getting along. And then they go and they just have nothing but criticisms on the other side of it. And by the way, we always acknowledge we're going to ask tough questions. We all asked Marjorie Taylor Greene tough questions. But I found that she was sincere at commercial breaks. I was talking to her before and briefly after the show. And isn't taking the bait now.
No, and it's being offered to her constantly.
Yeah.
And you went on The View, and what did those women say? And she's like, oh, I wanted to have a good conversation with them. And I don't know. I appreciate that.
And I feel that way. I hope that any guests that come on at least you have my word. I want to be nothing but hospitable and actually hear from you on substance. What bothers me is when people want to come on to have a moment.
Yes.
But what does that accomplish? For me, I'm we had a thoughtful conversation about both healthcare and reopening the government with Marjorie Taylor Greene. getting your viral clip, but us not advancing any dialogue for the American public. What's the point?
You're not serving your constituents there either. All right, let's get your take on some other things. There was a story today about a woman who decided to go against what HR departments often tell employees, that they should bring their whole selves to work. We've talked about this backstage a little bit with the other host. She said, "We all contain a cast of characters with different goals and values. It's impossible for all of them to share the spotlight all the time. So I stopped trying to be my whole self everywhere and gave myself permission to prioritize and compartmentalize." I think this is probably smart. I have trouble with it.
Same.
What do you think? Do you agree?
No, it is totally smart. I think there's been this in the last 10 years, this idea of bring everything everywhere. And I think the younger generation maybe leans too hard into it. But I'm a total hypocrite on this because my entire professional career until this job, I never brought my whole self to work. I never would have talked about a breakup, my sex life, my body, how sick I feel being pregnant, what Justin and I are arguing about with my coworkers, much less my boss.
Yeah.
But there is something about this show because it's a more intimate setting and we're expected to talk about those things that I find we all constantly overshare.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a thing. Do you find it more comfortable, or do you ever knock yourself later and be like, what am I talking about to the people I work with?
I find it, but the way I feel, it's similar to friendships. As long as there's an equal exchange of information, and that's how I feel at the show. If I blurt something out and I'm like, should I have said that in the workplace? Not that's inappropriate, but more overshare, Alyssa.
Sure.
Joy or someone else is going to do the same thing the next day. So it's almost this okay, I feel comfortable because we're all sort of having that trust among us.
Yeah.
But there are definitely things that I've said in this workplace that I'm like, oh gosh, if I had said that at the Pentagon, I would have been mortified.
I respect people that are able to keep things private. I don't have that gene. I talk too much. I'm always kind of whatever I'm thinking, I'm saying. And also I've been here almost 10 years now. So eventually the guards kind of wear down over 100%. Time too.
Well, and how much of the staff too, how many of the producers have been here for 10, 15, 20
Absolutely.
years? There's a comfortability that's different than other workplaces.
Not only do I share too much about my life, I share too much about my family's life. My coworkers know about my kids' dating lives. It's all very weird. Yeah.
Everyone's been hearing about my dogs. Whoopie's asking about them every day. My problems become everyone else's problem.
I kind of like it that way. But,
I do too.
Yeah. All right. There's another story on our Hot Topics list today about a 34-year-old woman who was dumped after a decade of dating, and she wants compensation from her ex-boyfriend for stealing her childbearing years. She says that he should pay for egg freezing or IVF because she made career sacrifices to support him. This is fascinating.
I
what do
didn't
you
know
think
that
about
last
this?
part.
Yeah.
Okay. My gut is if you're with someone for that long and you've not gotten them to commit, I had very frank conversations with Justin. Marriage is a goal of mine. Kids are I want to know that there's a timeline and a future because I had seen a lot of girlfriends waste time with guys who just did not have the same goals aligned. I have to imagine there were some signs there in that 10-year period that it wasn't going the direction she wanted it to.
I mean, I do find that in relationships, people tend to see what they want in those moments too. I definitely, before I met my wife, dated people that took it more seriously than I did. And I thought I was being upfront, but maybe I wasn't to them. But then also, I don't know. I mean, also, I guess it would depend on how explicit the other person was.
I think so.
10
if he said years is a very long time though to just
tread
drag
water.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, once I don't like to play into these stereotypes, but I felt strongly when I was getting close to my 30s, I needed Justin, we got engaged when I was 29 turning 30. I needed him to be on the same page that marriage was in our future. And to be honest, if he said, I don't know if I see this for us, I probably, as much as I loved him, would have had to have a real conversation about is this the right person? Because I know that matters to me and that commitment does. So I think it's a little bit of seeing what you wanted to see and ignoring some red flags along the way.
What was your longest relationship before you met Justin?
The ex right before him, the video gamer with the Bud Light fridge.
Yes.
So it's seeing what you want to see in relationships. I always tell my friends on staff who are single, don't settle.
Yeah.
Because it was the late 20s where I was very happy professionally. I liked my apartment. I felt like I was making all these steps. And I wanted to will a healthy relationship into existence that I turned a blind eye to so many things. And I was just convincing myself he was better than he was. And I blame my girlfriends at the time a little bit that I kind of feel like they hyped him more than he deserved.
Sure.
And looking back, I'm like, he's not even in the same universe as Justin. Justin loves to mock me for it and deserves to.
Sure.
like I don't think I would never would have been where I was if I'd ended up with him, but you can really see what you want to. In that settling, I would have been so much better. I did eventually end things with him, got the most focused on my career I'd ever been. And then within 6 months, Justin and I got together and it was like, oh, that's what I deserved. So I fell into that trap. Don't settle.
All right. As someone who has an arcade game in his basement and a
fun.
fridge and like some other stuff, I feel
it was
like
his living room.
Our living room's
main
different.
floor,
Okay,
living
main
room,
floor is
Bud
different.
Light fridge.
All right, fair enough. Plus Bud Light. Come on.
I know.
All right. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining me today, Alyssa. Tomorrow I'll be back with Sarah. We were supposed to have you and Joy today, and unfortunately Joy was out. I was having trouble coming up with the nickname because, we've been doing we had the Wonder Twins. We had Fire and Ice for Sarah and Sunny.
Yep.
What are we thinking for you and Joy? We need something.
Oh, that's tough. You can't put me on the spot.
Yeah, well, I had.
Wait, you had one earlier.
I had one earlier. I liked. It was nice and spice.
I like nice and spice.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Or spice and nice. It could be either one of you. I'm not saying which one of you's
I feel
spicier.
like we can figure it out.
I think we can figure it out. All right. Let me know if you have any thoughts, and we'll see you soon.
See you.